Hello and welcome back to another episode of Uncut Square Yards. I'm your host Shruti Kailash, and today we are discussing the role of architecture and design in real estate in the post-COVID era. To discuss this, we are joined by Mr. Amar Tendulkar, Chief of Design and Sustainability, Mahindra Lifespaces. So, firstly, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon for calling me. And
So, to start with, Amar, I would like you to give us a brief about, the role of architect and designers, or rather architecture in the real estate sector, and how do you think it has evolved in the last, say, in the last decade?
yeah, see, it's in the you see in the society. It's like what I call housing. It's like a blood in the body. 90% in the body is the blood, and 10% is your bones, muscles, and so if you see the housing part in the society, it's about 70, 80. I mean, 85 to 90%. It's about the housing, and rest of the things are institutions, healthcare facilities, infrastructure, and all those things.
Right.
So where developers contribute mainly, it's into the housing sector. So housing sector plays, the developer plays, the major contribution what is there into the human body as to the society. So it's a main blood kind of a thing for the real estate sector, the housing. And we all live in the houses, right? I mean, and it's the most important thing where we live has to be a kind of a pleasant environment, has to be a kind of keep us happy, keep all our needs, everything, kind of satisfied with, nurtured with. And that is the thing which architecture brings in. I mean, anybody can, that way build a kind of shelter, I can say. I mean, man from the cave ages, he's been trying to, stay in some kind of a protected place. And that evolution is from the caves to the tree houses and to the buildings which we see in the urban areas. So that entire evolution is a kind of a man's experimentation towards, or the kind of a journey towards how he can live in a more pleasant, more comfortable kind of a environment, which is safe, secured, giving good light, ventilation, and man is the only probably, arguably an animal who they say can laugh. Okay, I mean, so that is what I say that the architecture brings on the face of or the design brings on the face of the human or the man, that everybody else lives in a kind of a shelter, but where architects contribute is the man who or the human being who becomes happy in living in their shelter. That's the contribution of an architect.
So, how do you think the role of architecture and the designers is going to change now in the post-COVID era? What role do you think architecture is going to play, or design specifically is going to play in the new upcoming residential market?
So there's one very important thing that we follow when we do the design is understand the behavioral pattern of the user.
Right.
Whether it's office space, whether it's a residence, whether it's in commercial mall or whatever it is, and that study shows that the deep exercise that you do, and then you design based on that behavioral analysis exercise. Then the designs are more friendly and more successful. Whether you take it in the mall, if the mall you clearly understand about what is the catchment and what is the behavioral pattern and what are their needs, your mall commercial design is going to be successful. So now, when I relate it to the post-COVID scenario, I mean, you see that there is a substantial or the remarkable change in the behavioral patterns of the, people which has come. People are, earlier people used to come close to interact and all. People are now standing away from each other. They are they are looking at more touchless experience. The home, where we used to stay only probably on the weekends and, come home take the breakfast, probably go to the office, come home, take your dinner, watch some news or something or some entertainment and, go to sleep. So the 12 hours which we could spend in home were mainly about, using the kind of 8 hours into your bedroom for sleep. It's not just 4 hours. Rest of the 12 hours or 10 hours are mainly in your office environment and all. But now what has happened is that work from home culture has started kind of taking the precedence. People are working from home. So out of those 24 hours, now people are spending this 14 hours in working from home.
Right.
Okay, so that every element in the home or the every space in the home which was not explored or kind of I can say getting ignored, not used very efficiently, that every space is getting explored, for the person to use it. And the things which were kind of not used in the home or not paid much attention are getting to the attention of the people. I mean, I can give my example or any of my friends' example. It's like as boys, we were kind of less kind of attending to the making some food or in the kitchen and doing some dishes, maybe on Sundays or something, doing some breakfast dishes and all. But we are not paying so much attention towards the detailing in the kitchen. I'm telling you, even though I'm an architect, I've done my kitchen, but which is I can say much better than many other kitchens that you see. Being an architect, I have that advantage. So, but still, now when I started using the kitchen, I could find, okay, if I could have done this thing differently, or I could have used probably a better appliance, or probably if I could have probably a charcoal barbecue in my kitchen. I mean, all those things. So everything that you use in the home is getting now the better attention. Now coming to the kitchen again, I'm saying, now I started realizing that if I could have probably the screen in the kitchen, okay, and it's not that it was not needed in the earlier days. I mean, housewife was there or anyone was there. They also were kind of looking for an entertainment facility when they were doing the stuff in the kitchen. But we always used to ignore those things. I mean, bedroom में है ना TV, living room में है ना, kitchen में और क्यों चाहिए?
Right.
But वो चीज और क्यों चाहिए? That we have started realizing now. Okay. So now this is same is about the balcony. Okay. I mean, in our enclosed home, I mean, after this kind of hectic working hours, if you have to go out, I mean, sometimes you need to at least little bit dress up and go out, But if it's in your own home balcony, probably you can just go in your pajama, have a cup of coffee or something, get relaxed. So that even the 10 minutes of going outside your enclosed home into the balcony, that experience brings in a lot of energized kind of a thing back when you go to the work. And this is the something, with the rules, regulations in Mumbai now, we have been missing. So I think those are the things which are going to come back, and that's where the design is going to contribute. Now, similarly, this COVID or this pandemic is going to bring this, some kind of a scenario even to the residential societies where, the visitors, probably people will look at, how they should get sanitized before probably entering into the society premise. Their bags, probably the goods, they should get probably the UV sterilized or something. And as a developer, as an architect, what is important is that we can't ignore those things. We need to provide the space, we need to provide the infrastructure, we need to provide the power connection and all those kind of things, what is being needed for those. And sometimes, yes, somewhere you provide it, somewhere you leave it to the societies. But I can't ignore that kind of a need of providing that space for that and designing that space as per that. Now you get into your staircase or into the lift. Okay, I mean, there is a technology which is a touchless technology which is available for the lift. But no, it is a costly technology. It is costlier than you press the button. But now what is happening is that with the demand, now this technology is going to come, everybody is going to demand, and it will come more and more. Even the indigenous players are going to manufacture this technology. And probably that is the kind of a thing that architects will start looking at. And then some modifications with the technology and the architecture, those they are going to come. Now,
sorry to interrupt you.
No, so I was telling the journey from the person who enters into the lobby to the lift, then he'll go to the, his particular lobby. There are people, 2-3 type of people, those they will enter to that lobby. One is the owner himself. Second is the guests which are invited or the close friends and all. And third is, the service person. Those they are your milkmen, those they are your drivers or any kind of sweepers and all those things. So the milkman, your, daily newspaper supplier and all those things. Earlier people used to hang a kind of a cloth bag to their door handles, or that the newspapers used to be kind of thrown from below the door or probably from the letterbox and all. Now people will be concerned about the hygiene. So I think we'll have to make a place, at next to where we enter into our homes. I mean, even for the guests or anybody entering, can we have a kind of a shoe box which can get sterilized and people can keep their shoes over there? Okay, before entering, can we have a kind of a some kind of sanitizer application space that we can do it for them? Can we have a kind of a place which is where the milk pouch or the milk carton can be deposited very cleanly, and it gets automatically sterilized before you pick up and all, and same for the newspapers as well. So I think these are the kind of elements which are going to get become very important in the design. And then when you come inside the home, you will require not very compact kind of homes now. People will look at little bit spacious homes, okay, with the balconies and all. And that spaciousness, of course, it's going to increase the ticket size and so the cost also. And now the impact is going to come on.
Yeah, I'm planning to come to that. Sorry to interrupt.
So I will tell you that why the architecture. Why the architecture is so important.
Question. I want to ask a very specific question when you mentioned about the ticket size. Because like you said that all these changes that you were mentioning, whether it's at the lobby or at the landscaping or entrance, those are design changes, right? But when it comes to the ticket size itself, or increasing or probably offering larger spaces, that means kind of altering or changing your product offerings, right? Yes. As compared to what you've been offering till now as a developer. Correct. So where do you think, by and large, where do you think the developers are at this point of time? Have they started their research? And what is the, status with Mahindra? Are you guys already, doing this research? Are you guys okay with expanding your inventory in terms of, offering larger spaces? Because that might need, for sure, it will increase the prices, and you don't know if people are, ready to spend. So what is your take on all those things?
Yeah, I think very good questions, and there are too many things. I mean, so many things that you asked in one question. There are multiple layers of these questions. So first, I will address the question about the ticket size.
Ticket size, right?
So in the ticket size, there are two parts. One is that you make the home bigger, spacious, or you make the spaces more flexible, in terms of they can accommodate multiple usages.
Correct.
So when I am talking about the ticket size, I'll tell you how the ticket size works. I mean, how the sale price works. Sale price is, of course, we are in the business, we want to earn profits. There is no kind of a doubt about it. But that profit is based on what? Profit is based on what is your land cost, your approvals cost, what is your construction cost, and then what is your management cost. These are the four things which contribute towards the cost of that project, and then you top up with your profits,
right,
as a business case. Now, with the kind of a scenario that we are into, the land costs definitely are going to kind of get into the kind of, I can say, levelized kind of a zone. They are not going to go high as they were going to be. Then it keeps, then it's our construction cost. Now the technology is improving, okay? And as the designer, or as an architect, our role becomes very important, that how we use the technology, how we use the construction-friendly material, how we use the design optimization methodologies that we have been kind of. It's not that we are not doing that before, but I think I am saying that now that focus will be more, and everybody will contribute towards that. So earlier it was like only probably the construction and the designers were contributing to that. Now it's not only the designer, and now let's say some lift manufacturing company will also manufacture. Contribute towards that. Suppliers will also contribute towards that. Any other your technology vendors, those they'll be used in the building of the buildings. Those they will contribute. So as a cumulative efforts towards that, we are looking at how we can bring the construction cost kind of down, and giving that advantage in giving the better space or the more space to the customer. So what we are looking at it, I won't say that the cost will not increase, but it may marginally increase. But when we talk about the benefit, okay, it's benefit or the value. It's what? It's a benefit divided by the cost. It's a value, right? So when the benefits are more and the cost is going down, so the customer is going to get better value. So we are looking at, by marginal increment, even if it is in the cost, the value which customer is going to get, the benefits will be much more higher to that. And then the customer will look towards that, looking at, what is the kind of a quality of life or the secured or the protection that he is going to get towards the post-COVID scenario. Now, there is another segment where we are looking at not increasing the ticket sizes. And then there our focus is that in the same, kind of a segment, that can we give some kind of a flexibility in terms of the spaces? I mean, there is so much of the
segment?
Yeah, affordable segments, or probably even in the even if you are in the heart of the city, the ticket size is going to be restricted.
Right, because of the space.
Yeah, so there also the space is important. But so person want to live in the kind of a in the main heart of the city, but still we want to kind of restrict on the ticket size, and that will be still the kind of a premium. I mean, the 2 BHKs which are coming up, you see in the heart of the city versus the 2 BHKs which are coming. So there is a difference in the size, and we can't still call them as an affordable, but still you require all those kind of things. So, there the focus will be how we can bring in the kind of a lifestyle into those homes as well. And, what we kind of say that, inside the home, what matters, somewhere can you provide, into your amenities, and it's like, let's say, kind of a small gymnasium. If the home is large, you can have a treadmill in the home, or probably some space for doing your yogas and all. But the home is not that big. Probably you can restrict it to some smaller space to do his kind of yoga kind of, or some what I can say is the meditating kind of an exercises in the home. But yes, you build the outdoor amenity in such a way that he gets at multiple areas to do his exercises, whether it's a kind of a garden gymnasium, open gymnasium, whether there are kind of spaces which are spaced away from each other, and everybody gets his own space to do his exercises, and you facilitate with the kind of an instructor and all. Okay, so this is the kind of a thing which is good. So where the homes are smaller, this focus on the lifestyle amenity is going to be even higher. So it's a kind of a balancing between both, which is going to come up.
Sure. So I wanted to, kind of align this discussion to sustainability. Like you talked about maintaining a balance between the, landscaping, providing the amenity, to the construction technologies and design, right? So how important do you think is going to be the role of sustainable development in the coming years?
Absolutely. See, sustainability means you save for your next generation. If you take everything away, what is there for the next generation?
Right.
You have to live. That is all about the sustainability. And hence, I can say that it carries a very important role in whatever we do. I mean, not only in building the homes or any kind of projects, but in our everyday behavior also, wherever we go. I mean, we have to have that. You have to embed that sustainable behavior into our routine. That's the kind of an importance of the sustainability personally too. And in Mahindra, we are trying to do this thing in the same way. As I told you, I'll come to that making the sustainable homes a little later. But first, I will tell you that we have got a vertical, which is a green army, and we are the first developers who have got the 100% portfolio of the green buildings in the entire India. And we are not only doing the sustainable or the green buildings. We are through this green army. We are looking at how we can educate our customers as well, that how they can maintain, what are the sustainable features, how they are beneficial to them in their life cycle of the project, and how they should maintain, how they should take advantage of it, and how they should kind of keep those sustainable features going. Okay, they should not spoil that. They should further kind of maintain them properly, so that they remain giving those kind of results. And ultimately, all these sustainable elements, those they are going to save the water, save the electricity, and people have started understanding that. Because if the person is getting, let's say, 5,000 rupees electricity bill, with the sustainability, understanding the sustainable features, he's going, and maintaining those, he's going to get that bill to about 4,000. Okay, yes, there is some maintenance cost, but ultimately, if he understands that maintenance cost is for his benefit, he's going to pay that. So this is what we are trying to tell to every customers, and our efforts are that we build kind of a million citizens understanding that through our customer platform. It will be a kind of a great initiative in building up this kind of a drive, or the kind of a sustainable society. So this is our aim, and we are moving towards that. Coming back to the construction part of it.
Right.
So in the construction, we are doing, as an institutionalization practice, that we are doing whether it's a Gruha certification or the IGBC Green Home certification. So we are following those mandates so that whatever we are doing, we are kind of ensuring that our practices are kind of getting institutionalized and recognized by even the kind of larger body, which gives that confidence to our customers also that we are not only talking but we are delivering as per some international or the kind of government of India standards. That is the first part of it. Second is when we use all these materials, into our homes, into any of our project. I mean, our drive is not only to take those materials, but we are doing the suppliers meet, we are doing the manufacturers meets as well. And we say that it's not only that your material, some manufacturer to vendor or the manufacturer, we say that it's not only your material which is important. In your overall, we are looking at in their company also whether they follow the sustainability standards. And those only entrepreneurs or those only suppliers, we are kind of a shortlisting or we are impaneling in our, kind of a list. So it's like a journey from end to end.
Okay.
The plant machinery equipments which we use into the construction, those also we ensure those are also the kind of a green certified or following certain environmental norms. We ensure that we sprinkle the water or we kind of shower the water on the buildings in the kind of periodical way, so there is not the kind of air pollution kind of happening. I mean, we barricade the site in such a way that there is no noise pollution, which is so. Those are the kind of small things in the construction phase. Also, we kind of monitor.
Right. What is your take on there is this mission apart from the housing for all by 2022. I believe there's also a mission to achieve 10 billion square feet of green space in India till by 2022, and I think we're already at some 7-8 billion square feet. So, yes. How do you see yourself as a developer contributing towards this aim, and where
absolutely. And as I told you, it's yes. I mean, anyway, we are doing the homes. Now we are looking at not only the homes, but how do we do it at the community level or at the city level. So before closing remarks, if you have got a couple of minutes, I want to give 2 examples that what we are doing.
Sure, please go ahead.
So we have got a world city in Chennai and in Jaipur. So Chennai World City, we had a lake, that lake was dried down and kind of Kulawai Lake. And with our efforts, Mahindra's effort, that entire lake rejuvenation, the team had carried out there. And now that lake is kind of, you see that 365 days there is a water in that lake, in the Mahindra World City, Chennai lake. Now what has happened is, the impact of that has happened is that it has changed the entire microclimate of the area. The entire area has become green. There are more trees, more bird species there. You see, the flora fauna which was kind of getting extinct in that region, from that region. So it has built a kind of a beautiful environment along with that lake. Now, very interesting part about it is, there were about a decade back, there were very infamous floods which had happened in Chennai. Now, this lake, it has rejuvenated because, you clear up the groundwater channels, or the springs which kind of fill in the water in that kind of a lake. And the floods happen generally when you stop that water going into your soil. I mean, that is the one kind of a major contributor towards the flood. When you have got everything into concrete roads and all, water doesn't pass through. Okay, and then the level starts building up. Now with this lake and rejuvenation of the lake, I mean, there is one of the things which has happened is all these channels which are going towards the lake have been opened up and all those kind of things. So when the entire Chennai was under the water, Mahindra World City was still kind of a good place to live. It had not got any effect kind of a flood. So this is the kind of a environmental impact of you do something at the community level, not only at the home level or your society level, but the thought was more towards the community level. Now this is about the environmental sustainability. There is another aspect towards the economical and the social sustainability. Now in World City, we are not following the concept of the compound wall. Okay, this entire 1500 acres of the site is open for the natives and for the local villagers and all those things. They can use the roads which are built by Mahindra for their passage and all those things. So what has happened is, when they pass through, there is a kind of a weekly bazaar, or the kind of a thing. So they come, they put their, homemade stuff, into those World City. We have provided them marketplace and all those things kind of a thing. So it's a kind of a good example of how the coexistence, which helps into the economic kind of a strengthening for both. So we have got a lot of expats and all those things. So they enjoy, okay, our local flavors and all those things. Whereas these people, they get the advantage of selling those products and all other, rather than going to the Chennai main market. So they have got their market nearby in the walking kind of a distance. So they are happy. So you see that any major development comes in the vicinity, generally you see that there is a kind of a some kind of an anxiety in the local system, whether they will lose their land, they will lose their daily wages and all. Whereas you see, because of this sustainable approach towards the social and economic way also, these people are actually supporting this kind of development, which you see, it's a kind of one of the very good examples that how do you do the large developments, taking the community in the confidence. Now in Jaipur also, at our site, we are putting a small weir and we are looking at how do we kind of the water which is getting into the just drained away from the site, how we can stop the rainwater and how we can make a kind of a small pond out of it and revive our site. Now this entire Jaipur 3000 acres of the world city is a carbon positive city. It's not only the gold rated, but it's a carbon positive. That means it has got the surplus energy. That means the future units which are going to come up over there, okay, it's going to be kind of they will not have the dependency towards the outside any kind of resources. I mean, all their needs will be taken care within the world city itself. So it's a kind of a more independent kind of it will not have the burden on the main Jaipur city or other Rajasthan when you carry this development. So these are the kind of things that one look at doing, that we should do. I mean, the building the homes and doing all those things, those are the kind of things which automatically then keep on happening. I mean, the drives are then much higher.
Sure. I think we've had a very great discussion and very insightful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope we'll continue to collaborate in the future as well.
Certainly, and thank you so much. Thank you for your time and thank you for inviting me to your conversation. Thank you.